Hello there, Sir from17 once again. This is my Yakuza 5 EX Hard difficulty walkthrough. This is part 1, chapter 4, it's called Destinations, and this is the hardest mission of the game, and it's by a very large margin. And I'm saying that without having actually beaten the full game on EX Hard, but I know from my hard run that all the things coming up will be nothing compared to the sequence that you do at the end of this. Absolute madness, guys, absolute madness. I was hoping to get a nice, fun, clean fight and showcase a lot of different heat moves and all that kind of stuff, you know, make it as interesting to watch as possible and just a nice, cool sequence. And in the end, I had to really fight for my life because when you get grabbed in that particular sequence, you can't counter it by throwing the dude, it seems, on certain people. And if it's one of the people where that doesn't happen, you have to mash X. And while that's happening, if anyone else decides to punch you, you take really big damage. And I'm using a piece of equipment called the Bloody Bindings, which lowers my defense, but it gives me triple the heat generation when I attack people, which is why I can be constantly in a state of heat form, which you're seeing right now. And somebody asked if there's any like story reasons for the spirit, the dragon form and all this kind of stuff. I really don't think there is, other than, you know, Kamaki's teachings and ancient techniques and these revelations and things. I think it's just a stylistic choice that it's a little bit like, you know, Fist of the North Star, Dragon Ball Z, insert your favourite, you know, action anime thing. But quite a lot of fights in this particular chapter, because what we're doing, folks, is we're looking for people in red tracksuits. So we're looking for a particular gang so that we can get information, and we're trying to talk to the person who we beat up in the previous video, as I take a couple of big hits there from a stick, and I chuck him, knock people down, and then proceed to start using heat actions on their face. Which, I find this game really confusing now I come back to it. I played... Let me give you the idea of my Yakuza journey, seeing as this is a really long video and it'll enable me to talk, so I'm not really doing anything too different here, other than a weapon-specific heat action with a nice wooden katana. It's not a Bokuto, but it's pretty cool, even though... Are they all called Bokutos? I don't know, I just remember that Suzuki lady off of Outlaw Star. Anyhow, the trick here, guys, before I get into this tangent, is talk to the locals that have the sign above their head, and they will tell you where they saw these gangs. And then you go to that spot, you have a fight, you go to the next spot, and it's one of the more investigative moments in Yakuza. But here's a rich bastard, so make sure to steal his money. And I'm curious if that move takes heat in this game, because in the old games it did, but in this game, it doesn't seem to drop my heat bar, you notice that? Which makes it incredibly powerful if that's true. And, God, I learn so much when I play these games, it's not even funny, and that's the cool thing about the Yakuza series. Because they're all so very similar, and because the movesets have carried over between all the games, playing Yakuza 3 has taught me lessons that I didn't know in this game. Playing Yakuza 4 has taught me lessons I didn't know in those previous games. And my Yakuza journey started with Yakuza 2. I had been meaning to play these games for a very long time, and I just never got down to it because to me, I thought they were just GTAs with occasional brawling moments, and I didn't know how the combat felt, I didn't know really how it played. To me it looked really button mashy, it looked really quick time heavy, like you weren't doing too much, and I avoided it under that premise. So skip a few years later, I decided to pick it up when the announcement of Yakuza 5 happens. It was actually thanks to a YouTuber by the name of Darkside Phil, who a lot of people will get some enjoyment out of that fact, but he played Yakuza 4, which I didn't watch. I didn't even know he played it until he told me. Not personally, I don't know the guy, that would be absolutely hilarious. He'd probably change his ways in the space of an hour, because I'd fucking berate him until he did. But he said he was going to play it, so I was like, oh, Yakuza 5's coming out. It's a completely different game to any of the ones I've got on the channel, so, you know, it might be something that's worthy of a playthrough. And it definitely was, I just decided to do a walkthrough instead. Because I've still got Fallout, and that thing's going to run forever, dude. It takes so long to get anywhere in that game. This is a bad one. Oh! Right on the coccyx. Ugh. Terrible. Absolutely terrible human being, Kazuma. So I thought, instead of going out and buying one of these games and burning money on a game I don't know I'm going to like, I'm going to get one on the emulator and see what it's like, you know, back when it started, back in the early days on the PS2. And I got Yakuza 2. Really, really liked it. Played it, like I mentioned earlier in the walkthrough. Skipped all the cutscenes. Only read the stuff outside of cutscenes. And did missions. Didn't do anything else. Did all the Colosseum, that kind of stuff. You know, did the side missions that I could find. But that game really doesn't help you on that. So it's very difficult to find them. And you can miss them and all kinds of madness. And at the time, I wasn't upgrading my HP. I was on a normal playthrough, not upgrading HP. And I didn't realise, because how would I? I'd never played the game before, that once you get past that first upgrade for your life, the life tree is the same tree that improves your evade and a whole host of other useful abilities in these games. So not upgrading HP in Yakuza is only for challenge runs because it's really, really useful. And I played that entire game with base HP pretty much, and the base evade, which is not that great because it's not quick, you can't stagger it, you can't do more than one quickly. It's, you know, it's pretty really, really challenging, and Yakuza 2 is hard as fuck. Checkpoints are the worst they've ever been. You have to do 20 rooms in a row full of tons of dudes with guns and shit, and if you die, you're back to the beginning. And some of the bosses, absolutely brutal. Bosses I couldn't even touch. I couldn't do good damage to them, so during my playthrough, I had to drop the difficulty down to easy to beat it, because I didn't want to be there all night, because I was just trying to see what the game was, to test it out kind of thing. And the two fights that I had to do this were the tiger fight against the two tigers, which is famous, because that's where the tiger drop comes from. Fucking horrible, worthless, stupid fight. And then there's a fight later on in like a communications center inside Millennium Tower where there's like 1,000,000 guys and one of them's a boss and he's got a fucking gun. And when you've got no life, I died in like 3 bullets. And it was absolutely brutal. It's harder than any of the other Yakuzas on New Game Hard, playing that game the way I played it. It's an absolutely brutal game, and I had a lot of fun with it, and it motivated me to pick this up. And that's exactly what I did. I got the digital download. It took 2 days to download it, after I deleted my entire fucking hard drive to fit it, because apparently on the PlayStation 3 you have to have twice as much space as what you're trying to download, or it won't even download. It's the dumbest, worst piece of architecture I've ever heard of, and whoever designed it should be fired, and hopefully that's not how the PlayStation 4 works, because if it is, that's just stupid, dude. I have no idea what that is, and I'm hoping somebody who's more intelligent when it comes to computers can tell me why that would be a thing, but that can't be industry standard, because when I download stuff on my PC, it's not downloading, you know, twice as much stuff, it's just the stuff that I wanted. It's bizarre. But I picked it up, and I started playing it, and I think this game's absolutely terrific. Does it look ugly? Fucking hell yes. Hilariously, now I've gone back and played Yakuza 3 and 4, this game looks wonderful compared to them. Yeah, I came off of playing next-gen titles, these wonderful looking games, and I came to this and it makes it look horrible. Like, some of the textures are just terrible, but the moral here is this game is so much more than how it looks, and I think that's the most important part, because I have all these great games waiting to be covered on my side, and I want to play these games, and it's a testament to what happens when you do play them. They truly do have really, really great gameplay. And a lot of it's optional too. The thing I like most about Yakuza is a lot of people think it's just this goofy Japanese simulator, and in a lot of ways it is, but a lot of it is choice. You don't have to partake in it if you don't want to, and that's what makes it great. You can completely 100% dive into everything if you choose to, but the game only forces certain moments on you, and outside of the Haruka chapter, which I think is a disgrace for people that don't want to do it, the game is really good at giving you little samples of what you can do if you want to get into it, and then like not doing too much with it. But this guy right now, you'll notice his moveset, it's just like all the thugs on the street. He doesn't really have anything too unique, but it's kind of a signature fight here, because you saw the introduction where it said his name and everything, which means, I suppose technically this might be classed as a boss, even if it is a sub-boss. But he doesn't really do anything too bossy, and it makes it really difficult to fight, because he's not doing anything that great. He's grabbing me, he's doing standard combos. You know, he can get out of my grabs, which is useful. He can't punish the guard breaks, and it's just one of those moments where it's like, there's not really too interesting you can do to this guy, outside of messing around with all the different heat actions. I try and do a Yakuza 3 and 4 staple there, but I don't think I have it in this one, or maybe I do and its detection's just annoying. What am I trying to do? Oh, I'm trying to land a counter-attack, which is not hard to do, but the game has really weird detection. And the problem with it is, the button to do heat actions is the same button as the largest recovery move you own, which is the triangle attacks. And occasionally, it's only up for like a second on the screen, and when you press it, if you're not bang on, it'll not do it, and you'll do something else. And because of the finickiness of this, you'll take damage, you'll get put in a really bad spot, all kinds of tricky situations because of the way the game works, which is kind of shitty at times. Akiyama is way better in this than he was in 4. In 4, trying to get that triple kick on a crowd can be a pain in the ass, because you'll have it set up perfectly, you'll go to do it, and he'll do his running attack, you'll land in a bunch of enemies, and you get immediately punched before you can block or dodge. You know, anybody who tries to do no damage on this full game is a lunatic, because the game doesn't control well enough for that to be the case. The bosses, definitely, you can definitely do the bosses, but once again, it's a nightmare to do it, an absolute nightmare, because the game just breaks its own rules all the time. And right now this is a chase sequence. The trick to these chase sequences is putting up with the frame rate. When the frame rate starts to go into the toilet, it fucking irks me like something fierce. When you fight in the Colosseum and the frame rate goes into the toilet and you can't even land your parries because the timing's different now, the frame rate's like 7 frames a second, like... I don't understand this game with its optimization, and I'm hoping the PlayStation 4 ones are much better. You'll notice I'm doing a little chain there with the shoulder barges. It's guaranteed damage and you can chain it for quite a while, but these people have boatloads of HP, so it makes these sequences on EX Hard last forever. And it's... I don't know, like, how would you do this faster? You're just kind of waiting for the quick time events because of how much you have to hit this guy. And I'm really glad that they've changed it from Yakuza 3 and 4, because in Yakuza 3 the fucking chase sequences, my god, they're awful. They're so bad. Like, they are rage-inducingly frustrating, because they're hard as well. They're not just long, they're hard, and you have to have really good turns. You have to pick your attacks. If you miss an attack, you might as well restart on some of them. Really difficult, unless you upgrade yourself. And some of them, you have to do them before you can have upgraded yourself. So if you do New Game Hard or New Game EX Hard, they're absolutely nightmares. Because the minigames on these games are as difficult as the difficulty. And I'm learning that on this walkthrough, because I'm in the Haruka moment, and I'm wanting to do her submissions. Because she's the only character in the game I didn't do the submissions with, because when I was playing with her, I wanted to do anything but play as her. I want to fight. That's why I like these games. I like to fight. And she doesn't fight. And all I wanted to do was play as Akiyama, who you get to play as halfway through her chapter, but you have to do so much fucking bullshit to get there. And I skipped all the submissions. And then I get to the end of the game, and when I look at the stats, I did every side mission and submission with every single character except for Haruka. So I couldn't fight Amon, who is the secret boss of these games, is like the ultimate weapon. And... hopefully on this playthrough, because it is Premium Adventure, I'm going to try and do her side missions, and I don't know if it stacks, because I immediately got emails when I started this walkthrough telling me that each of my characters had done the sub-stories, and you get a reward at the shop, which is a pain in the ass, because if you're full you can't tick it off them. So janky, this game at times. But this is the first of a very big, large-scale fight, and this is another area that can be very challenging if you're not confident in your ability to fight. So what are my tips for these moments? My strategy is the same for every sequence in this game. Always go into a situation with max benefits. Always have eat to get 2 in every slot, even though I'm not abiding by my rules here, but this is a walkthrough and I was trying to be quick. But you'll notice I've done as best as I can, so I've got the 2 life bars and I've got double strength and double spirit. Then, from then onwards, depending on what you're fighting, if it's a group of people, you need to throw, and then from the throw, you need to do the swing. And the swing on this game is so incredibly powerful because it teleports people. Doesn't do that in 4, doesn't do that in 3. So in 3, it's fucking worthless. In 4, it's a little better, but it's still really worthless. In this game, it is absolute god tier. 100% god tier. It is amazing. However, certain things have been nerfed in this version compared to 3 on certain encounters. For instance, a really good combo in 3, and then a little bit in 4, but not quite as much, depending on how you hit the guy, is a standard combo where every hit lands to do the 3 squares into the 2 triangles, and then the last triangle bounces the enemy, and then you do the dash at the end into a triangle to knock them again. And if you knock them into a wall, you can then follow up with an additional combo. In Yakuza 3 and 4, you can almost land this all the time on a lot of enemies and a lot of bosses, and it's a really good damage dealer. In this game, a lot of enemies don't bounce, so it's really tricky to get that, and a lot of the times you can't dash quick enough to get the punch off to kind of extend the combo. So they've changed a lot of ways in how the game works, even though it's very similar. Subtle differences are abiding everywhere. The first one you'll notice, which is what I did when I went from this game to Yakuza 3, is the movement. The movement in this game is a lot more weighty and it's a lot slower. In Yakuza 3, it's super, like, swimmy and arcadey at how loose it is. And it's not in a bad way, it's just different, and it takes some getting used to. So it's one of those things where they've changed a lot of things between the games, and you've got to kind of stay on top of them, or you'll not understand how they work. And another good example is the Tiger Drop, which is a counter move when you're holding the style button, which is R1. And then when you attack people when they're in the forward momentum of their own attack with triangle, you will do this blue auraed punch that does really good damage, and in this game gives you the most iframes out of any Yakuza game. I love this, by the way. How brilliant is that? We need more of that in Yakuza, dude. Just really clever quick time sequences that have an effect on gameplay. Because if you mess that up, you have to fight those people. It's really cool. Oh, you'll also notice that it's telling me to do the essence move, that ultimate essence thing in the top left-hand corner. I forget the name. That was a Tiger Drop right there. And that was a failed one. That was a nothing. That was a failed one. Because the timing, you see, is different between the games too, which makes it quite tricky. I think the timing in this game is a little bit tighter than the timing in 3. 3 seems to be really loose. I think the timing in 4 is the hardest. Because in 4, there are times when I know the timing because it's an identical attack and I'll still miss it. Like, there are moves in 5 that I can land every time because of the Colosseum that in 4 will miss because the timing's different. And then in 4, additionally, there's a counter move to your counter, which doesn't exist in the other games. When you do that to people in Yakuza 4, they do the reversal counter where they dash back towards you and do it to you. And on my first... Sorry, not on my... I think it's the 3rd boss when you're playing as Akiyama. He's a guy who breathes fire and does capoeira. That guy, I managed to chain Tiger Drop. Oh, it's called Counter Kick when you play as him. But I chained Counter Kick. It knocked him away. He came back at me with the counter move, and I did it again. Counter Kick, and I chained counter kicks on him, and I killed him, doing nothing but counter kicks, and it looked absolutely fucking amazing. Carried on playing the game. Got to Kazuma, got my Tiger Drop, because you have to be level 12 or some bullshit, and it's a level now instead of a training regime, which I really don't like. This is Yakuza 4 though, guys, nothing to do with this one. And then when I tried to do the same thing, the timing was different. So I did it perfectly with Akiyama, and then I couldn't do it with Kazuma. And I still can't do it. Unlike that one moment, that fantastic epiphany moment. So now, because I've fucked it up so many times and I've got no confidence in doing it, I'll Tiger Drop, and then I'll dodge and do a full combo from behind, build heat. And it's kind of upsetting, but I'm going to definitely practice the timing because it looks so good, dude. It's just guaranteed tigers, and they're so powerful. More so in this game, because in this game, they give you more iframes, and the damage is a little better. Also, the window's a little bit more lenient in this, because you can train to increase it. But in 4, way different. And the thing with it is, if you don't know, it's a technique that trades. And in this game, the sweet spot in getting the perfect Tiger Drop seems to be way easier. And I'm all for that, because I think if you land it, because it's tight enough to land, it's not the tightest thing in the world, it's not like a fucking Royal Guard from Devil May Cry 3, which is absolutely masochistically tight. It's just right, I think. It's a right amount of muscle memory and timing needed. And when you do it, I don't think you should ever take damage, because you've done it perfectly, and that's the point. And I think that's what they realised with this one, so it's way more reliable. As I try and grab 2 things just then, and it didn't pick them up because the grab detection in these games is fucking horrible. One of the worst aspects of it, absolutely frustrating. But just keep on powering through, guys, keep on fighting. Did a Tiger Drop in, I think it's in all of them. It's definitely in Yakuza 2, definitely in Yakuza 3, definitely in Yakuza 4. The sweet spot in those games, completely different. You have to have perfect spacing, perfect timing. Because if you don't, you take damage. And the damage adds up, which makes the Colosseum way more difficult in those games. Because every time you do that move, you're taking mandatory damage because your timing wasn't optimum. And it's a shame because it's such a cool move. It really is. And I suppose you can look at it like, just get good and get better at the timing. But a lot of moves, because their hurt boxes are so wide and their attacks are so... you know, just the way they move, it's almost impossible to put yourself in that right situation. It's something that's going to take hours of practice to get. And even then, if you're a millisecond out, you're going to take a trade. So if you're going for no damage with fancy tiger drops, you're fucked. Which in that game, I find it much better to do the Kamaki parry, which is the hold R1 and press circle, because then you'll move out of the way, take no damage when you land it, and then you can do a combo. The only problem is what you decide to follow up with, because a lot of the times against strong enemies, they'll just dodge it. Like, some enemies will even counter your grabs, which I really disagree with. But in Yakuza 3, you could probably bounce people. In Yakuza 4, you got access to the ultimate attack, which in that game is amazingly good. So, you notice on the top left of my HP bar, there's that big red circle. If I hold R1 and I press triangle when somebody attacks, I'll go into an essence technique where it tells me to press a few buttons and I do this jumping in the air kick that does decent damage, but it's nothing impressive. I barely use it because I think it's shit, and I generally save it for bosses. But that technique exists in Yakuza 4, but you have to earn it, and it's way better. Because what you do is, on that game, when you have max heat like I have right now, you have a red bar, and it gives you a red aura, which looks really cool. I love the auras in Yakuza 3 and 4. They've kind of lost it in this game, which I'm going to talk about as well. And what happens then is, when you do a heat move, you have access to power heat moves, and this means just stronger heat moves. One of them is a neutral grab, where he just slams people's head into the floor, and it looks absolutely visceral and awful. Another one is... this ultimate special, which is really, really useful. And what you do is you do the Kamaki parry, and when they're in the stunned state, when you press triangle, it takes off a full HP bar every single time, even on hard. And it's absolutely amazing. It's really, really good. And if you're good enough at increasing your heat, you can get it again. And it's nothing to do with building that arbitrary bullshit circle and then pressing a bunch of buttons to get really lazy damage. And I love that because you've earned it. And I think some of the design choices in this are not as good as the older ones. Like the HUD. The HUD in this game is way different, and I think it's almost cheaper than Yakuza 4, which doesn't make sense, because this one came after it. Yet the HUD in Yakuza 4 looks nicer. So many elements of it look better. The auras look better in that game. Like, the fonts look better in that game on the level up screen, and like a lot of features just look way better in that game. I find it really confusing as we take on this dude. Like, they've taken away certain moves and given us certain moves, and I don't think you can do the dashing heat attack in this game, and if you can, I've just not figured out how to, because I do it all the time on 4 and 3, and I don't think I've ever done it on this one. Maybe it's a secret maneuver that you've got to get from somewhere. But all this is here, guys, is a quick time sequence, and then you're going to one-punch your Hata instead of the big fight, which I wish I could do that again, because I'd love to learn that boss. I wish this game had a boss rush mode, or just the ability to fight the bosses and pick the bosses and fight them. The closest you're going to get is the ultimate challenge mode, or ultimate battle I think it's called. And then you have to do all the shit ones to get the good ones, and it's really frustrating. It's stupid shit like running away from forklifts. Really bullshitty. All I want to do is be able to fight the bosses without having to get to them. Let me fight the bosses, let me fight them on EX hard, and let me restart immediately. One of the things this game needs, and I hope Yakuza 6 does it, is when you pause, you need the option to restart. Because it's the most frustrating thing in the world, letting enemies beat you up on a game where they don't do enough damage, even on the hardest difficulty. And I just beat Yakuza 4 last night, and it's a really fun game. I didn't warm to it too much because I wanted to play as Kazuma. He's my favourite character, and in that game you play as everybody but him for pretty much all of it, and it's really frustrating to somebody who's just come off playing Yakuza 3, where you play the entire game as him, just like you did in 1 and 2. And I can appreciate that people want, a little break from him, because it's, probably gets a little bit fatigued, but he is Yakuza to me, and I'm glad that they've kept him in these games, and I think it was really smart having him be number 1 in this, because he's second to last in Yakuza 4, which is just not so great. It might even be last. I can't remember the progression because I just did all the submissions in that game. But getting to him, like, not as fun for me personally, even though I like, you know, Saejima, I like Akiyama, I like Kazuma the most. But I got to the end of that game, and the final mission, the finale in that game, is just 4 bosses back to back to back. No bullshit, no messing around, 4 bosses and a lot of cutscenes. And I spent about 20 minutes getting into hyper mode, where I had the payback ring active and I had the bloody bindings on, so that I could try and get some no damage videos to put up on YouTube while, you know, I'm playing this game, and if anybody wants to see a walkthrough of Yakuza 4, I can always go and do that later. So I go into the first fight as Akiyama, and the game's healed me. So I have now a massive life bar against a boss who it takes him 2 minutes to kill me. So I was like, fuck it. I tried a few times, I got really close, I'm like, I don't have the patience to wait for this bitch to beat me up. And it's massively frustrating. But you know, what isn't frustrating? Yeah. Ugh. I wish it wasn't, I really do. But I made a mistake here of trying to pick this weapon up. Watch my life just vanish. So, this is just the daftest, most crazy thing in the world, and my strategy is very simple. You want to go into the dragon mode that I really don't like, and you want to throw people. When it wears off, you want to grab the closest guy to you, and you want to get heat back, and you want to go back into this mode. And that's all we're going to do. We're going to chain the invincibility of that dragon mode. This is absolutely crazy. There's so many enemies here that it's almost impossible not to get beat up. And there's even a special cutscene for when you start getting beaten up, because it's almost like they wanted you to. And you could come here with a really good weapon that's fast and good at knocking everybody down, and probably have a really good strategy with that. But I wanted to do one that didn't require having to get anything, and everyone's going to have this move, and hopefully you'll have more success than me, because that early area, I took a bunch of unnecessary damage which I really needed at the end of this. Because as I've mentioned, I'm going to try not to use items in this walkthrough unless it's for a specific purpose. And healing is something I really wouldn't want to do, but if I'm pushed to, I might. And you're going to see the end of this. I was almost there, because it got real scary. Primarily because there's a guy over there with a shotgun that I try and kill, and I don't kill him good enough. And then there's people with all kinds of weird shit, and the fight is super long too. Oh, it's... you see that just then? All I wanted to do was throw that dude, and he did that throw against the wall, context-sensitive one, which then made me vulnerable, so somebody punched me, and then I got into this mode where everybody starts beating you up. The good news is, this lets you kill a bunch of folks with 0 effort, as long as you press the right quick time moments. So that's actually really useful, but you have to take damage to trigger it, I think. But just keep doing this. Throw one guy, get your heat up, go into crazy dragon mode and repeat. Like, I had no idea that this was going to be so hard, I really didn't. And when I say hard, I died once. So it's not, you know, crazy difficult. We're not talking the hardest game ever made. We're just, for Yakuza, where I'm not used to even losing 1 bar of HP, this beats me up. And it's just because you can't really do anything fun in this particular encounter, because there's too many enemies, they interrupt everything you try and do, and then they do big damage on you when they grab you and shit. It's just bad news, as Kazuma does the all cool dodging missiles, not looking at explosives because he's a beast. And then the fight begins again. Now it's added with 3 fat guys with sledgehammers, and we go into another one of these quick time moments where we get to beat up some people. But like ideally, if you've done every single heat action in this game, you will have the ability to use heat actions without needing heat. So you could just run around doing the teleport, you know, punching everybody when you run at 4 people with heat. And you could just spam that, and it's probably the best way to do this. However, I don't have that. I didn't even know that existed until I started playing Yakuza 3. And I was looking certain things up because one of my criticisms of this game is the information for it is either in Japanese or it's hard to find. Because some of the stuff I was looking for, GameFAQs forums had certain answers, but certain stuff just wasn't there. and like the first thing I was looking for every game was where to find bloody bindings, bloody bandages, or bloody sahashi, or whatever you call the wrap, sarashi. Essentially, where to find my favourite piece of equipment in the game, because they've all got it, and in some ones it does different things. For instance, in Yakuza 2, it doesn't increase your heat faster, it increases your damage. So if you wear Payback Ring, and you wear bloody bindings, and you have no life, you can one-shot Amon on like hard on that game, just by doing a single heat action, because it does so much damage. Which is what I thought it would do in these games, but it doesn't, and it's really disappointing. But in these games, instead, you have the ability to get Amon's glasses, which increase your damage from all your weapons and things. And certain people on forums say it increases damage from your attacks as well. But I don't know, because I can't really test it, because I've only got the glasses on one game, and I didn't really notice any difference. Can you see how that guy has that red smoke coming off his head? That means that he's enraged, and when people are enraged, they will attack at every opportunity that they get. It doesn't seem to be quite as bad in this game as it is in 4 and 3. In 4 and 3, you get attacked way more on those games, because the enemies are just more aggressive. If you want to get more aggressive enemies in this game, you can either taunt to piss them off, or you can wear the champion ring. The champion ring will put everybody into a taunted state, and they'll attack you much more feverishly. It can be useful for certain things, but it takes up a slot that you can put for something that does damage, and I just picked up a weapon which I didn't really want, because dropping weapons on this game can be very difficult because if people interrupt you, you know what you can do. I just got shot, by the way, by a shotgun at that range, by that guy from over there who hit me again, so this starts getting really hairy really fast, all because I didn't kill him. All because I picked up that weapon at the beginning, and because I didn't kill him. But now I've got a shotgun, I can give it back. Additionally, guys, this is New Game Plus, so feasibly, you could bring in every single firearm that exists, and you could just murder everybody with guns. It works really well. Like, even certain weapons, if you've built any of the best weapons, like the dragon weapons, they do so much damage it's not even funny. And I've got a video series coming of Yakuza 4, Amon, on hard, where I no damage every phase of the fight, which is not that difficult to do, but you've got to play like a bitch to do it, because those bosses are super bosses, which means they've all got really good dodges, they've all got bullshit evade, counter moves, all kinds of nonsense. So you have to pull out all the stops to beat them. And one of the things that I did, which is a really great strategy if you don't know, in Yakuza games, the first heat move you do does the most damage. If you repeat that heat move, it gets diminished returns, so the damage is nowhere near as high. So to maximise your damage output, you want to mix up your heat attacks. And if you can do a ton of different heat attacks, you're doing massive damage. And one way to do this easily is to always carry 3 different weapon types, so that you can do the weapon exclusive heat moves. And the good thing is, it doesn't matter what kind of weapon it is, you can literally have the worst weapons in the game, you don't have to upgrade them at all, and you'll still do good damage in heat mode. However, the damage of the weapons isn't great, so you can't use them as weapons because they'll just be crappy. But what I realised when I was fighting one of the Amon brothers as Akiyama, I'm using the heat mode on this sword I've got, and it takes off maybe 1/5 of his bar when I do the heat move. And then he hit me, so I swung at him to try and coax him to dodge, and then attack me so he'd kill me faster so I could reset. Because there's no restart, and it's frustrating. And when I hit him with his sword, it did nearly as much damage as what the heat attack did. So I attacked again, and I took nearly an entire life bar off from one combo, and I was just stunned at how powerful they are. But I'm not really much of a weapon user in these games, other than when I really have to, which is like right now. Because this is really dangerous, this section, and it goes on forever. And you might have been wondering when I said that this was the hardest level in the game, you were like, why? It's this! There's nothing in the game that's like this, where you're getting gangbanged instantly and there's nothing you can do. Like, if you were Akiyama, this would be the easiest mission in the game, because you'd just be able to chain the throw and just keep spinning people around, and there'd be nothing they could do. But you're not. So the only thing I can think of is the dragon mode, and unfortunately, you have to get into it. You know, if you're using that infinite heat action, you can probably be in the dragon mode forever, and you'll never take damage here. But getting that, you have to do every single heat action in the game, and when I was looking up for heat actions, there wasn't that many good guides online. The one I did find was Japanese, which is a pain in the ass, but I didn't look too hard, so I suppose you can find one if you try. But the information is really tricky. For instance, on Yakuza 4, I've been looking for something called the long nunchaku for the longest time, because if I can get it, I can make the best nunchuck in the game. But I can't find it. And all over Game Facts, all you have to do is go to the Weapon Master and buy it while you play as Akiyama. And then I go as Akiyama and he doesn't sell it. He sells a wooden nunchuck, which is not the long nunchuck, although they look very similar. And then I've googled this thing for ages and it's just nowhere to be found. Like stuff like that, really tricky to find specific things. And I can't imagine playing these games in Japanese because doing the side missions is just going to be close to impossible. Which is why I'm hoping, I've actually ordered Kenzen and Ishin, which are the two Feudal Japan Yakuza games, the spin-off games. But they're both non-localized, so it's all Japanese, and I'm going to be making an interesting project with those games called a struggle through, or a translation through, where I'm essentially going to just put together some pretty fun, entertaining videos, hopefully. And if they don't work, I won't do any more. If they do work, I can do more. It all depends on, what you guys want to see. But as we can see, Kazuma's kicking ass here, and at the end of this cutscene is the end of this sequence, as we do the Feel the Heat moment, which is way better than tapping the goddamn right trigger like you have to do in Yakuza 3. That's the worst. There you go, folks. If you can do that, you can do anything in this game, because that is just dumb. So dumb. But thank you for watching, and as always, you take care now.